So the last book I read for my project is She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb. This isn't actually a young adult novel, but I read it because it's been so popularized by Oprah's book club that I thought some of my students might actually pick it up because of that. So the book is about the life struggles of the main character named Dolores Price. Her story takes place from about the late 1950s through the 1980s, and it's a pretty rocky life. It starts out at a pretty early age with her mother has a miscarriage, her parents get divorced, and her mother goes to a mental hospital. And it just seems to go downhill from here. At age 13, Dolores is raped, and from there she begins to eat her feelings. And so by the time she attempts to go to college, she is 5'5" and weighs 260 pounds. And this creates a lot of problems for her. The climax of the story comes when Dolores tries to drown herself, but can't go through with it. The rest of the story is about her recovery and her relapses. I probably wouldn't recommend this to any of my students for two reasons, both being about relatability. I think this book, though it starts out with a younger Dolores, ends with a much older Dolores who's almost in her 40s, and there's a lot of adult situations that are discussed in this book that I don't think even high school students would understand. There were situations that I didn't even quite understand, so I think that it wouldn't be relatable on that aspect. Also, I think the time period would make it pretty unrelatable for my students. I even had a hard time with some of the references just because I never grew up in that time. I never knew that time. I knew a little bit about that time from my parents and my grandparents, but that also made it hard for me to relate to sometimes. One of the things I find interesting is the New York Times says this book is an ambitious, often stirring and hilarious book. I agree with the stirring part. It is quite stirring, but I did not find any hilarity in this book at all. It just seems like bad situation after bad situation for Dolores, and it absolutely breaks my heart. I finally felt satisfied in about the last 10 pages of the book where I feel she actually gained some sort of happiness, and still at the end I was kind of left unsettled. I just felt like this was such a horrible life. It was so disheartening, and it was actually hard for me to keep reading sometimes, because I just found it so disheartening. But all in all, it is a pretty good story, and I think it's pretty true to life. I think this can happen in some people's lives, and so I think it's truthful, but it was just so hard for me to get through. If you would like to know more about She's Come Undone, the author Wally Lamb, or even Oprah's book club, head on over to my author and resources page.